Good. Okay. So I have my new layer, and I'll just create a couple of points here and open up the attribute table. So if I have some dates in here, so let's say it's this was text, so 11. So if I have some data like this that came as text, what I can do is create a new field. I'll call it time instead, and I will choose either the date or the time or date, whichever format fits the kind of data I'm working with. Here I have dates, so I'm just going to choose date and click OK. And now I have this new field, which instead of storing something as text, will actually store it as a true date that QGIS can understand. So what I can do then is
expression.
Yep, use an expression, exactly. So, and if you haven't used this little widget is really handy for editing new values in QGIS. So when I put this table into edit mode, this little widget appears and lets you choose the field and then create an expression or put a value in here and then update those fields. It's similar to using the field calculator. It's just a different way of going. I could do the same thing in the field calculator, but I find this to be faster. So what I'm going to do is choose the expression window. And there is a format date function. So I can use this format date. Or actually, what I want to find is the to date. Actually, I want to use this conversion function that's going to convert it to a date. And then what I can do with this is first feed that my string, which is my date field. And then I can tell QGIS the format of that so that it understands what I'm providing. So I can put a comma in here and then a single tick, and I can tell QGIS that it's YYY for the year dash yeah, I think it's, I always have to refer, the format date has all the tags for different bits of time. Yeah, you're right. And then DD. Close the parenthesis. And now I have an expression that will tell QGIS to format this as a date. So I can click OK and choose update all. And now I have a date that the temporal controller could work with.
Perfect.
So I think that's what you have to do.
Yeah, extend the existing attribute table with a new field, which is a conversion of a string to a, yeah, okay, got it.
And you just tell QGIS if it's, if you have to include, hours and minutes and all of that, you do that.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
So that's normally something that has to be done, I think, more often than not. Before you can use the temporal controller, you have to do a little massaging of your data.
Yeah, exactly.
So
okay.
So now if I were to go into the properties for this layer, I could tell QGIS that I want to use a single field and use that time field, and it will show up. This little icon, indicates that it's a true date time field, so it recognizes it. I was hoping Hans would be here because he was interested in some of the temporal symbology that I had shown, and but I'll show this and he'll get the recording and everyone else can see it as well. So one thing with this animation here, where I've included this lightning data from DME, it has that occurrence of the lightning strike. And so I wanted to kind of show the lightning kind of as a big pulse and then fading out. The lightning obviously happens very fast, but my animation is slower. So I kind of have to make the pulse last longer than it really would in real time, just to make a compelling visualization. So I use an expression to tell QGIS to make the dot bigger and then fade both the color and the size of the dot out as I go forward. So you can see that the ones that have just happened are a big purple point, and then they fade to these, light pink, smaller points over as the as it decays with time. And so that can often, when you're displaying some kind of temporal data, being able to have the way it's rendered change with time can be a nice effect. And the way this is done, if I look at the layer styling panel for lightning and I look at the simple marker component, you can see that these data defined overrides are active. So that's what's controlling the size, the fill color, and the stroke color for all of these lightning points. And if I hover over this, you can see that there's an expression down there using the map start time variable and some other code. And what's really useful for this, you can obviously go in here and just choose edit and edit that expression. But there's also this thing down here called the assistant. And this gives you a little more control, especially with changing symbology over time, to control how that changes, if it's a direct linear change or not. So here, what I did was I entered the expression here in this assistant, and the expression, I'll just paste this into the chat so you have an example. It's taking the map start time and basically subtracting that from the observed time. So it's basically subtracting the current time of the map frame from the time in that lightning strike point attribute table. And along the way, I had to do some things to convert this to a date time. And this actually took me a long time to figure out, but this +Z was crucial to getting QGIS to understand the time zone of the data. And I found this on GIS Stack Exchange, this little clue. I don't know if people ever refer to that website where you can get help from people, but just putting +Z at the end, +Z at the end of the expression lets QGIS know that it's universal time, and otherwise my points were not displaying correctly temporarily. But the decay happens with this transform curve. So I can I'm stretching the size of the dot from 0 to 4. And I can, if I just had the default transform curve would just be a straight line, and it would just be a linear transition from the largest point size to the smallest point size. But with this transform curve, I can say, okay, I want it to kind of start out small and then quickly pulse to a large point and then gradually fade out over time. And so that's how I achieve that effect. And you can just use your cursor in here to change the way this curve appears. You can enter more points, and you can, change the behavior and get it to behave on the map exactly as you want. And again, this took some time. I tinkered with this for quite a while until I got it to look the way I wanted to, but it's a really powerful little tool that lets you control that decay over time of the point size. And so I basically did that same thing for the color for both the fill and the stroke. And so here, instead of size, I'm using a color ramp from dark purple to light pink, and controlling how it transitions between those colors or along the ramp with the transform curve. The expression is exactly the same. It's just using a color instead of a size. And the stroke color is duplicated. So this is exactly the same color ramp and everything. So I set it up exactly the same. So that's one way that you can start to experiment with getting points to shrink or expand or change color over time. So with the GPX tracks for the SQL tour that I showed, I did that the similar way, where I had it start big and tail off to a smaller point and change color. So that will, without a doubt, this is a more complicated symbology, and it takes some time, and you have to get it to behave just the way you need it to for your particular data set. But it works quite well. So that's that. And I was going to show everyone something else. This is the nightly release of QGIS. This is basically QGIS 3.2.5. So you can download a daily release of QGIS if you want to see a new feature. And so there's a new feature that's coming out that will be released when 3.2.6 is published in a month or so. So this is basically the pre-release version of 3.2.6, you can think of it. And this is a point cloud data set covering the town of Delft in the Netherlands. And so I'm looking at this point cloud, and there's a new feature in QGIS, this elevation profile. And so this is a fantastic new feature, and there was a big crowdfunding campaign to produce this. And this elevation profile opens up this panel down here. And what I can do is drag a line on the map. So let me zoom into an area. This is a big church, and we have like a wooded plaza here. So what I can do is either draw a line on the map myself, or if I have an actual route, I can capture it from a feature that I have as well. But here I'll use this, just capture curve, and I can just draw a line the same way I would digitize a line if I'm digitizing in a session, with a left click and a right click to finish it. And it draws this line on the map where I want to see a profile. And the line initially has, oh, I already set my tolerance. So initially the line has like almost no width. So it's not going to, in this case, intersect too many points in the point cloud data set. And so we don't see too many, but it also has this snapping toolbar, so I can actually snap to individual points in here. And you see off to the left here we get an elevation 20.5. So I can see how tall things are, different parts of the roof. And then with this point cloud, what I can do is in this settings section, I can start to increase the tolerance. And what that does, if you watch this line on the map, it's going to start to widen. And so QGIS is going to basically take a broader sample on either side of this line and sample all the points that it encounters within this tolerance. So this is in meters. It's in my coordinate unit. So this is a 4-meter swath on either side. So a total of 8 meters wide at this point. And so as I start to increase it, you start to see more depth and more points being pulled into the profile, and you actually start seeing rooftops and trees. And it's just a really interesting feature. This also works with elevation, but it was pretty compelling with the point cloud to be able to draw this profile and actually see the trees and the buildings. And then you can, measure the height of these trees, the height of rooftops, because I'm snapping to the actual points. And I don't know if this will work. I just opened this up, but this is the Danish height model, overflow here. And I'm just going to see if this elevation profile works. I don't know if it'll work against the VCS, the being pulled in from data for Suning or not. It may not do it. I haven't tried it. This is an experiment. If I draw a line across. I think I'd have to export it. And let me see, I think there's also a setting for this now in project properties. There's going to be a terrain tab, and I can tell it the project terrain is from a DEM raster. So I believe now, I'll try to draw this line again. Maybe I have to set this something in layer properties. There's also an elevation tab now in layer properties that supports this feature. So represents elevation surface for this DEM. Maybe that's all I have to do. Okay, yeah, I think that's going to work. So let's try this again. Yeah, so now I have an elevation profile across this line that, and as I move my cursor across the plot, you'll see it also highlights where on the line on the map canvas I'm at, so I can again measure the heights of the different dikes and things like that, or heights of buildings, heights of trees, and you can export these plots. So it's an interesting new feature that is going to come out in a month or so, and definitely ties into data visualization. So I wanted to share that with you. Does that seem like something that people could use?
Well, I can.
Yeah.
Because I'm working on roadworthiness and on maintenance, and the discussion is for the time being, how does the people know what the slope is and what the height is of the area they're going to use their machines on? So this could, if you could, I don't know what the road directorate is going to do about it, but I could sort of propose that we develop a one-page thing, and we could have a bit like that on it, just to showing the scenarios of the area they're going to do maintenance on, so they know.
Yeah.
So for me, it makes sense, really. But I had another course with you, Kurt, and you showed a bit the same, didn't you? I recall that there was another way for the lines. Not
Yeah,
for the Dutch.
there's been this plugin terrain profile
Yeah,
for quite some time.
Yeah.
But this is now part of going to be just part of QGIS built in.
Yes.
And the fact that with things like the snapping and also being able to measure distances.
Yeah. But
like
also
this.
to export it, I expect that I don't know if it's exported as a picture or what it is exported as.
Yeah, this will export it just as an image or a PDF.
Yeah.
And
now Thomas, Mads will leave us. Bye, Mads.
Bye, Mads.
I was unmuted. I have to leave. I have a meeting here in a few minutes, but it has been a very good course, Kurt.
Oh, good.
I enjoyed it very much.
Fantastic. I look forward to your assignment.
Yeah, I'll post it in end of this weekend.
Okay. Hey, on go weekend.
Yeah. See you.
Bye.
So yeah, here I can measure the distances between these two buildings, for example.
Yeah.
And it pops up here.
Could you also measure the slope, for instance? I mean,
this doesn't do. I don't think this has a slope capability yet, anyway. But you know what? One thing that you will come to recognize in QGIS, when there's a major new feature like this, there will be a lot of development over the next several QGIS releases related to it.
I know, and the project for the road directorate is also developing, so we just need to keep an eye out on what's possible, and then well, they would take that into account too. So yeah, to me it makes sense, really.
I have another program which I use. I don't know if you know the Scalgo Live, Kurt. Oh, okay. Scalgo is short of scalable algorithm. It's a Danish company, and they've made a business out of the elevation models, and then doing on the fly, water movements, flooding, all sorts of things. Very, very cool program. It has a fee on it, and we have that as a service in my and it has the same, just draw a line, you get the elevation profile, but it's got the catchments on various type amounts of rain and stuff like that. So it's just pinpointed towards the hydrological use. So that's what I use in my daily life, so to say. But everything has its limitations. So at times you would like to get something very specific, and then it's just nice to have QGIS and a plugin or a tool like just shown where you could make exactly that kind of thing. So once you have you get to just want to tweak it just exactly how you want it, then now we've got the thing for it.
Right.
But they're expanding every year, adding new features, and also remember I asked for the on how to on the what do you call it, auto photos, and then you could scan them for is it the imperviousness of the surfaces. And they made a layer and divided the world into 3 or 4 categories, and then you could sum it up on different type of catchments and stuff like that. So, but they've got it for the present, and
Yes.
based on a lot of things. And I'm curious on the development over time. So they provided me on some of the results I'd like to have, but not the rest. And actually, I contacted them and asked for them to use the algorithm and machine learning kind of thing on historic photos. But there are some challenges, of course, with that. But and it's not on the top of their list, so maybe they're putting it, maybe they'll come to it one day, but probably not within my span of
your time frame. Yeah
exactly. Yeah. So, and then I'll look into these tools to fix it myself. So yeah.
Yes, and I can guarantee you this will continue to grow. This was another tool produced by Niall Dawson, and I know he has a long list of improvements, and I know people have already sent him a wish list of new features. So I think you can expect that to come out very soon.
Could I like, just for fun, I don't know, Lars, if you have time for this, but if you go back to the Delft picture, could you draw a line over the church? Because a lot of the Dutch churches, they have a lot of ornaments. And I wonder if we could actually see sort of the outline of I expect that the Delft church has that too. Or the Delft building, it's probably not a church, it's probably a meeting house or trading center or whatever it is.
It is a church, and it's a big one.
And just for fun, I mean, now as we are sort of playing a bit around with
I forgot to share my screen. Sorry, I was doing it and I forgot that I'm not actually sharing my screen. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you have to play around with this tolerance and to get a wide enough swath of points that you're capturing just that. And there's also these buttons here that let you shift the
move. Yeah. It looks a bit like when landscape architects try to sort of show the landscape with trees here and cars there, and it's sort of a bit pushed out because there are no trees and cars yet or houses. But this is a smart way. Now we can do it as well.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, the Danish point clouds have some issue with their classification that QGIS doesn't like, and it's been trying to figure out what the reason is and how to get them to work better in QGIS, but have not figured it out yet.
Where would you find a point cloud in point cloud data set in Denmark?
I think it's a GeoDeco.
Okay, so there are some out there.
Oh, the whole country, yeah.
Okay.
How can you sort of write where we can find it?
Yeah, let me follow up in an email.
Yeah, good.
So yeah, you can see the profile of the and there's
but you can't see the ornament and the color of the eyes of the ladies on the other side of the church.
No, it's not quite that precise.
No, but it gives you the outline. And it is pretty interesting because you can also see a bit of the details, like there's a tree here and I hadn't expected that.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Wow.
So, and if anyone's interested, I don't know but if you go to, I use on my Windows machine this OSGeo for Windows installer. So if I go into the setup here, I can, this is how you can install the nightly release if you're ever curious. You go into this installer and you get to this, go through all the pages, and you get to this section here where you can install all the software that comes with OSGeo for Windows, including QGIS. And so you can see in here that this is the full desktop version of QGIS 3.2.4. And then this is the long-term release here. And then here is the nightly build. And so if you want to install this, all you have to do is go in here. It'll if you haven't installed it, it'll say skip. And you just, click on this until you get to a version number, and it will install the nightly release. And you won't have any conflicts. You can have all three versions, the long-term release, the current release, and the nightly release, all installed at the same time. And you can just choose which one you open up and work with. So I will do this when I see a tweet or something about a new feature that just got released. I'll go install the latest nightly release so I can play with it and see what it looks like.
Wow.
There might be some limitations in what I can install on my computer, rights and stuff like that. But
yeah, with IT.
Maybe yeah, exactly. Permissions. Yeah. Don't trust anyone.
No.
No. No. You have to spend like four weeks on your software man to allow him to.
But yeah, maybe at home or something.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's how you do it.
Good. I have another question. It's about when to use what. And for instance, well, as I've been the good one because I've done all my my number two things. But when I look at what you wrote about mesh data, is that it's used for methodology, hydrology, and oceanography, or whatever you call it. And in a way, it makes sense for me. Then mesh data is the thing more used for those stuff where there's housing and stuff is more temporal controller and when do you use if you follow a person who bikes along on a path, is that used as mesh data or temporal controller? I mean, like you did the GPX ride in Northern Zealand, that was temporal control, right? So
anytime you're going to be interested in animating time or looking at changes in your data through time, that will be the temporal controller.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that if mesh data can also have a temporal component, just like points, lines, and polygons and rasters can too.
Yes.
So, but anytime you want to work with time, that's the temporal controller.
So for instance, for Lars, it's the mesh data that's important. No, not the mesh data, the temporal controller, not the mesh data, because water flow doesn't it's not applied on this list.
And with the temporal controller, you can show my screen again. Like it supports all the data types in QGIS. So if I bring this back up, this happens to be mesh data, but the lightning is just point data. So I'm combining that with the mesh. And so if you go into layer properties for this, you can have data that has a date field and use that, but you can also just have a data that doesn't have any attributes like that, but you say, okay, this is from, it covers this range of dates. And just tell QGIS how, what time period that should appear on the map. So for example, if you have historic air photos and you want to show a whole series of photos in different time periods for one place, you can just go in and bring in each air photo and just use this fixed time range setting and tell QGIS this one is from 2010, this one is from 2015, this one is from, and set them up that way. And then when you get into the temporal controller, QGIS will, turn on each photo for the time period that you've indicated. So you
That's
don't
cool.
necessarily have to have time data with your.
No, you can also manually. That's really smart.
Yeah. So that's one thing to keep in mind too, because we do in Denmark have all that historic air photos.
From the Kongelig Bibliotek, yes.
So yeah, I think data fordela.
It's a good tip.
Right here. Always.
Yeah. Ah. Yeah.
So. And then for the, for the time label where we're just using that map start time variable, we're using the redraw layer only option, if you recall that, so that it just knows to refresh that layer each time frame. And then there's other options in here. You might have a data set that has separate fields for start and end, or start and end duration. So there's a lot of different ways to tell QGIS what time frame your data exists for.
Yes, I think some of the pipes that we've got in the ground, put in the ground in the 60s, and then maybe relined in 2007, something like that. Maybe you could use that kind of those two informations on how to display it. Just thinking out loud on what you just said. Yeah, okay.
You could just tell QGIS this line layer, starts in 1960 and ends in 2010.
Yeah. Because sometimes, the material type changes, being an old concrete pipe, showing this for this duration and showing a plastic signature from this duration. So, okay, I can see how you could combine those informations. Okay.
Yeah. And you
I'm just curious. I'm curious on which, which insights, or what do you call it, you would get from seeing data presented in this temporal way. Maybe I don't know if there are any, but I'm curious to find it. So
even if it's not insight, sometimes it can be more intuitive or just impressive to a manager or other decision makers that you have to present to be able to show things in that context is a little more exciting than just a flat map.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you have it live and you can scrub back and forth, and people can talk about it, and you can go back, oh yeah, what was happening then? Oh yeah. I think it can be a good way to have a discussion about the issues around something.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to just show them an animated GIF. You could just open up QGIS and start to move the slider back and forth and walk them through. Kind of depends on how formal of a presentation it needs to be, I think, at that point.
It sounds like it's another way of, when I look at areas, I open a lot of different auto photos from different years, and then I turn on and then I go a bit back because I wanted to see that. It sounds like, a bit like that, but just much smarter in a way.
Yeah, now you don't have to turn them all off or on. You can just slide the slider back and forth.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's, time is a big part of our data that hasn't really been a focus. We're usually just focused on the place and the map scale, but now that we can also incorporate time, it's a new area to explore.
But again, it's probably the question of well, as time will probably be the new focus also, is that more and more data is available. In Denmark, we've been pretty lucky that they have, well, first of all, our data is official and free of charge, and then also that we have these photos who are from the Kongelige Bibliotek, who are also free. And I don't know how many other countries has that, but I expect that the more countries there will be who has it, the more focus there is on the time scale too, because
Yes.
it's used for historical reasons too, I expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then the other part of that is just satellite imagery, you know, with different satellite platforms. There's global coverage with Landsat going back to the 70s. So it's coarser. It's not 40 centimeter, but
it's yeah.
So there's a lot of sources for that kind of imagery. It just depends on how fine resolution you need, and
but also how to get access to the data, because I know there's a Landsat. I know that Europe has a lot of satellites.
Copernicus. Yeah.
And yes, I'm sort of going, okay, where to find the data and what to do with the data. I still, you know, I still need a data forsyning plugin for European data. That would be really nice to have for EU paid satellites or whatever. That would be really nice.
I think what you'll find is, like in the Netherlands, they have their equivalent of data forsyning.
Yeah.
It's called PDoc. And, and so
yes, the other countries will, if they're not there yet, they will come. But I expect that's, you know, that was just, I miss the plugin for Europe. I miss the plugin for European data, not just the country data but for Europe. So because we are all, well, as we are in the EC, we all pay for these satellites. And I know data is out there somewhere, but it really takes time to find this. So it would really be nice with a plugin for data from Europe. Paid by the EC, an EC plugin.
Well, there is actually one plugin, I'll put it in the chat, that it's a big plugin.
Yeah.
It's called the where's my chat window here? Semi-automatic classification. It's a really big plugin that has a huge panel with it, and there's like there's a 20-minute YouTube video on just how to use it, because it does so much. But it allows you to discover data and download it to QGIS. Also process it, like NDVI, things like that. So it's a really good plugin that you can use, and there are some others like that. Here we go. To download data to QGIS from international satellite platforms and things like that. Yep. So this is the documentation. Luca, the man who developed this, has done a lot of work on the documentation, and it's pretty thorough, and it'll take time to learn, but there are things like this that can really help if you're trying to download satellite imagery.
But what would you recommend our next course to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. But what are you working on? What are your next challenges?
Well, I found the more things I learned, the more I find out I miss the basic stuff. You know,
okay. Yeah.
How to when I got a data source, how to, for instance, a raster file, how to is it possible to transform that into some sort of layer, and all those. I think it's basic tips and tricks, but
yes.
it's not.
I've just had a course like that with Kurt.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a custom course for.
We had a workshop for 2 botanists saying, I want this done, and how can we do that and stuff.
And I basically sat there and answered their questions for 2 days.
Yes.
And talk to the cat.
But I can tell you one course that's brand new that I'm offering now. I put in the chat a link to it. It's this field
Yeah.
data collection with this system called Mergin Maps with QGIS, which is really smart. It works really well. And that's a fairly short course, just a 2-hour session to cover that. Another course that's becoming more popular is this raster data course,
Yeah.
which laws that this would show you how to manipulate raster data, go from vector to raster, raster to vector. The topic of the course is using raster data to model a potential vineyard location using land cover and terrain and soils.
Yeah.
But along the way, you learn a lot of the basics of working with raster data that can apply to a lot of different workflows.
Yes, because I'm curious when I get some of the official data sets there are, and they're actually very good, but it's just a displayed image, and I just want to split it and use it myself, but it's yeah, then I come short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one we start out with we get all the data online. All the data is Danish, and we start out getting data from services and exporting data for the study area to your local machine. So you have a local copy that covers just your study area. And we talk about how to reclassify it into useful information. So like we do terrain analysis like slope and aspect, but then reclassify slope into the slopes that are important for that particular application. So, we're only interested in knowing if the slope is between 0 and 5%.
Yeah.
So we can pull out those pixels. So I show you how to do things like that.
Okay.
Another class I'm thinking of developing is one just on QGIS symbology, because this course is that we've just gone through is kind of some of the more data visualization techniques, but I think there's just a lot of basic QGIS symbology that people don't know is there. And so I'm thinking of just starting out with this is what you can do with lines, this is what you can do with points, this is what you can do with polygons, and just kind of go through all the basics of that, because I think people miss a lot of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be, I'm contemplating that.
Well, I think I'm going for the raster data. My next course will be on raster data, but I don't know if it will be November, or I expect, do you have it? Oh, yeah. Do you have it in 23 too, the raster data course?
Well, we haven't set up the 23 calendar yet, but it will be offered several times in 23.
Yeah.
Probably 3 times a year. It'll be
okay.
All of these.
Is that popular? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's brand new, so I hope it's that popular.
And as you are, well, your language is English. I expect that customers from English-speaking countries could also join the course. I mean,
yeah, well, I actually had a couple people from Canada take the last one. So there was a couple Danes and a couple Canadians. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's a nice thing about the online stuff too, that it's sad too, because you can't sort of talk to people in the coffee break, but there will be more people can join from all over the world, basically.
Yeah. There's advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah. As with everything.
Yes. But I'm always keen to help with specific workflows and things like that. So Laz, if you have maybe just a specific couple hurdles you need to get over, we could have a short workshop to cover your specific data and questions.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Maybe is it possible to hire you as a consultant for
an
hourly rate or something like that?
Yes.
Because Yes, usually I'd like to, work with it, but then I find, hey, I haven't got the time. That's usually how it ends. But
Yeah.
but sometimes you have to, have the hands on it before you can actually describe the task. So I like the process, but maybe I need someone to do the work for me. So, but,
Yeah,
but
I can do any of that. I could do some of the work for you and then show you what I
Yeah.
did so that you could repeat it.
yes,
Or if you just need to call me up and say, I can't get this to work, and we could talk through something for an hour, in any of those kind of arrangements we could set up.
yes. I don't know if you can confirm this, but I heard that if you end up with something you really like, a way of importing data, presenting and stuff like that, you can transform all the tasks into a plugin. So you could. Is that possible?
Maybe not, there's a graphical modeler in QGIS, and I think maybe that's what you're thinking of.
Okay, so maybe I got it wrong then.
But
Yeah,
and maybe that's something that it would be a good course actually. But let me
like in Excel, you've got the macros, and you could just teach the machine how to do
Precise.
stuff with data. Yeah.
So I'll show you here. Can you see my window now?
Yeah.
So if I go to the processing here, there's this thing called the graphical modeler.
Mhm.
And if I open this up, I can basically do a graphical workflow. So I could add a vector layer, and say this is going to be bi-meta geometry type line, and click OK. And so now I have that in there, and then I could say, okay, I'm going to need to buffer that. So I'm going to find the buffer tool, drag that in here, and I'm going to buffer the bi-meta by.
I got this book. Unfortunately, it's the old one, the old version.
Oh,
yeah.
And
It's got. It's I know, but it's got that on the well, I think it is, and it can just set a buffer, and I guess that's what you're just describing here in workflows. Then that process in the book.
We don't actually use the modeler in the book, but
no.
But I think we suggest that it could be done. But basically with this, you can make a model as complex as you want. You could then say, you have another. I know we're running out of time, but I could just do study area, and this is going to be a polygon layer. And then I could say, okay, and then I'm going to need to clip the
the buffer stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Using model input, using model output. So click the study area, click OK. And so now, I can start to string together a whole workflow. And then I can save this. I could run this and it will run just like a tool. So you basically create your own custom tool.
Yeah.
And then these show up in the processing toolbox. I don't have that set up in this profile, but there's a model section that will appear here. And so your model tools will just show up as your own processing tools that you can use. And you can actually also embed models into a project, save them into a project so that if you're giving it to a customer, they can just run that. But it's basically a way for you to create your own custom processing tool. So for things that you do over and over and over again that might involve 4 or 5 steps, you can just string them all together.
I'll look into that. That sounds very good.
Yes, it's very good.
Cool. Yeah. Okay.
So just let me know if there's anything I can help you with, and we can set up some kind of an agreement.
Yeah.
Give you a tilbud.
Yeah.
Move forward. So
yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks for now.
I will be, once you turn in your assignments, so you'll also be getting the official QGIS certificate for the course as well. So.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the export of the GIF, but maybe I'll just tick the wrong boxes. But that's all I'm missing. Then an assignment is on its way.
Fantastic.
But
And
I had the same problem in the beginning.
Okay.
and then I said, no, now well, I looked at, I've followed Kurt's online, you know,
the video.
yeah, the YouTube, and that was a big help, because I followed what he did on the paper, and it somehow really went horribly wrong. So
Okay.
I went in and followed the YouTube, and then everything was easy, no problem. And
Okay.
then I did it, you know, for all the three I did Moon too, but that was too big, so I didn't send that to Kurt. But it was really fun doing it when you know how to do it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I hope there aren't mistakes in my written instructions. I'll have to look at that.
Oh, I'm not pointing anything, because it might be here's the problem.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, but feel free to send me questions by email too if they come up.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
all right.
Thanks for now.
Go
Okay.
weekend.
Yeah, tak lige måde.
Yeah.
Bye.